What's going on, guys? We're back with more Ultra Rumble news, and this time we're talking about Strike Hawks, who's officially in the game, and he looks a little different than what we were expecting in terms of damage. He got a slight boost in damage over Night during the maintenance, where he does a little more damage on all of his attacks than we saw in the mod. And, it's not too bad, but there is an unexpected change that was added that no one saw coming, and it's very reminiscent of another exploit that we saw in previous seasons, so we'll break that down. But as you can see, his damage is very good at level 1, and once you get into level 7, it can really get really good, because if you can land all 3 of your alpha hits, with all 3 tornadoes, you can do some really good damage. You're doing 150 damage if you can land all 3 tornadoes. You have to kind of angle it a little bit specifically, but you can pull that off, and he still can hit you 3 times with the alpha combo. And going over to his beta, again, you can just see the damage, like 148 at level 7 is doing 116 at level 1. He is insane. And with the gamma, again, 102 at level 7, but as I showed you guys yesterday, that can be better because you are losing a bit of a hit for some reason. So if you throw in a couple rapid cards, and as I found later in the video that you only need 1 rapid card, you don't even need 2, you can get that extra damage that you're looking for. So pop those cards, and now that damage goes all the way up to 150. And again, if you just tap it, that does 110. So even if you don't do the full combo, you're doing significant damage. But if you do get the full hit, you're doing 150. And again, this is all just at level 7, no strike cards, no tuning build, nothing like that. But if you max out his levels on all of his quirks, then obviously the damage goes up as usual. So now you're doing 162 if you land all 3 alphas. And again, this is just crazy. Again, he's a strike, so you're doing 154 on the gamma, 156 on the beta. So we expected him to have good damage, but a lot of people were underwhelmed by what they were seeing from his damage numbers prior to his release. And again, I told you guys that stuff can always change, and damage and OP characters sell, so it's not a surprise. But let's get over into what he actually is doing now. And as you can see, he just broke out of a Shiggy grab. So Strike Shiggy is doing his gamma to grab me, and I can instantly get out of that just by doing the beta. So his beta is currently bugged. This is not a feature. This is not intentional. The developers did not expect this to happen, obviously, as we saw with Overhaul when it was happening with his gamma when he was first added. So you're not supposed to be able to break out of grabs and combos and stun locks like this with any move outside of probably permeation. But again, this is the new and improved Hawks. They said we're gonna find a way to make him broken in this season that shows off 1 for all Deku and Prime all for 1. As you can see, most of the attacks in the game, he can counter or simply break out of it and do a counter or exchange. And again, he still eats that damage, so keep that in mind. He does have armor on the attack, but he does have less health than Overhaul. He doesn't have the benefit of being able to just completely replenish his health. So bear that in mind. All the Hawks players who are looking, rubbing their hands together, getting ready to exploit this, keep that in mind. Like, you do still have to take that damage, and there are some attacks that can actually stop this and counter this, and I'll show you guys those as well. But as you can see here, he is definitely in position to just get out of sticky situations. So Froppy beta stun lock is not going to be a thing for him as long as he has betas, which is another, bit of a silver lining for people who have to deal with fighting him. He only gets 2 charges out of beta, so, he can only break out of 2 attacks. So that is a bit of a silver lining, but again, this is definitely going to be annoying. But in a season where characters were constantly being stun locked by 1 for all Deku's melee combos, I can see people appreciating something like this if you're a Hawks main. But again, so many deadly attacks that would set you up to just instantly get comboed or killed, he can just break out of that. And again, he can just take that damage and do his own damage. And, it's very situational for a lot of attacks, like, with rapid Bakugo's Gamma. You have to angle yourself up because he rises up when he does the combo. But, stuff like that is just something you have to bear in mind. But again, the fact that he can do that, he can just get out of that combo is very convenient or inconvenient, depending on which side of the fence you're on with that. Kendo, he can do a trade with her, which I wouldn't recommend in most situations, because again, you're still eating a ton of damage. Like you're definitely going to be feeling that trade if you're playing Hawks. He only has 275 HP. He can tank the Kendo clap and do his own damage, but you're definitely going to be limping away from that exchange. So keep stuff like that in mind if you're looking to exploit that. And again, for people who are going to have to deal with this, I got you covered. I'll show you the attacks that can definitely shut this down or stop him from being able to escape. Ida's Beta is not going to be one of them, obviously, or his Alpha combo. He's going to be able to get out of that at will, but it's not completely hopeless. So I know people are, looking at this and thinking like, oh my God, I'm uninstalling, or, this season is over, stuff like that. There's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So again, most of the characters in the game, you're going to have to figure some stuff out, or just position yourself in a way that he can't actually hit you outside of escaping your attack. And again, he can only do it 2 times. He doesn't have instant reload. That cooldown is going to be significant, so keep that in mind as well. If he is breaking out of your attacks, he can only do it twice, and it'll be a while before he can do it again. So take advantage of those situations, punish where you can. But as you can see, he's just this dude is just getting out of everything. I was so surprised to wake up and see that this was a thing in the game now. Again, the best we can do is deal with it until the developers become aware of it and hopefully patch it out. We do have another maintenance coming up this season because they do have to install Prime All for One. So sliver of hope that they actually patch this season, because as we saw with Overhaul, they left that in the entire season. And that was something that was prevalent day 1 of season 6 with him. So I'm on the fence about how I feel about this, because again, it's, as the game currently is, there's so much stuff that stuns you, locks you in place, sets you up to get killed and stuff, and that's typically not fun. So characters having a way to get out of that stuff is like, I'm kind of pro that, but at the same time, this is clearly unintentional and is an exploit / bug. So I know people are going to be super upset because they're losing exchanges because of that, or if a close fight comes down to it, you're losing because of something like this. But as you can see with Aizawa's Gamma, the grabs don't stop him, but you do have a chance to stop him with the Gamma. Depending on how many hits you can get off, depending on how close he is to you, you do have a bit of a window to kind of lock him in place. But as you can see, it's not a guarantee. He definitely can break out depending on the right circumstances and timing. So I wouldn't put all of my faith in that, but there's a chance. And as you see with Momo, there's a chance for her to lock him down and stop him. But again, I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. I would say her beta is probably going to be a safer bet. So pop off a cannon, set up a beta, and try to bait him. But as you can see with Present Mike, his beta, especially at range, he can completely shut him down. So the stun, he can cancel out of the stun, but going into his Gamma, it gets really tricky. So it's like Present Mike's Gamma, it hits, does the damage, and you can activate the beta to get out of it, but you're going to be in a bit of a delay, so you're not really going to have a chance to do an exchange of damage. So Present Mike players, keep that in mind. You do actually have a good option for dealing with Strike Hawks, who's trying to cheese with the beta. For Deku, that melee combo is definitely not going to be locking Hawks players down with the new Strike Hawks. His Alpha, you can take the hit and keep fighting through that and avoid the knockdown. So you can ignore the knockdown completely if you time it right, but the beta is where you're going to run into problems. So similar to President Mike's Gamma, the beta doesn't really give you a window to counter or exchange a hit. So you will take that damage, you will go into a brief pause, and by the time you counter strike, Deku will no longer be in a position for you to hit him. It's kind of similar to Mirio's new counter, where when you trigger it, you go into a brief pause before either character is able to react. And unlike, those characters, Toga's beta does not have that problem. She has a very fast startup time, and she does a couple hits very quickly, but again, it can be a bit of a trade-off, so keep that in mind. Dabi's traps can stop him depending on how soon he catches you, like if he catches you right in the middle of it. All for One's beta can shut that down. You can literally just stop him completely. He doesn't have a window to react or attack. And the same for Endeavor's Gamma. You really don't get a window to do anything unless you're already going into your beta prior to him starting up or before he fully unleashes the move. If he catches you at range and starts hitting you, you're not getting out of that with the beta. So again, Endeavor players, surprisingly, you might be the answer to stopping Hawks because his Gamma and his beta both can stop him from getting out of those attacks with his beta. So as you can see, it's going to be pretty time restrictive with the Gamma, but with the beta, there is no opportunity. Like that second follow-up hit is instant, and I'm pressing buttons as hard as I can in this moment, and it's just not happening. Like you're not escaping that with a beta hit. So if Endeavor hits you with that beta, you're going down. But that's pretty much everything on the new Hawks character, guys. New addition to the game, better damage than what we were expecting, and an unexpected exploit coming along with them. But as always, you guys, I want to hear what you guys are thinking down in the comments. How do you feel about new Hawks? Did you roll for them? Did you get them? And how soon do you think it's going to be before we see this patched out? Make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.